It is Wednesday, the 26th of August, and you know what that means. It's time for another edition of Wednesday with Walton and Reis here at the Cardinal Nation and available through all your favorite podcast apps as well. I'm Brian Walton, and as always, with me is Kyle Reis. Welcome, Kyle.
Hello, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing good, Kyle. What was that hand signal? Were you waving to the audience?
Well, Brian, we might as well get right into it. I was waving to the audience and to you. It's important that's really the first part of the motion was, oh, hi, guys. I love you all. I missed you since last week. The other thing is that the dogs are just decided to go to town right as we were about ready to do the thing. The little boy, Dipper, decided he wanted to try to grab Aggie by her head. And that's what we had. So they got a little pea thrown at him. There's a little it's a little stuffed pea that they chew on with the squeaky. It's a squeaky,
Well,
and
there you
so that
have it.
went that went flying through the air.
So, in the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to cover all the news across the St. Louis Cardinals system during the last week, or at least all the news that we feel is relevant to cover. Let's start out with what was announced on Tuesday, and that is the unfortunate news that Mason Winn has a fractured hand, and that means he won't be playing for a while. And in maybe a bit of a surprise move, I don't know, Norland Gorman was called up. For those wondering if Gorman is going to somehow fit in the second base mix with Weatherholt moving over, I don't know for sure, but I can tell you this. Nolan Gorman has not played one inning of second base in 2026, and the odds of him doing that in the major league seem very, very low. In fact, I would be very disappointed if the Cardinals played him at second base, not preparing him for that mission. Blaze Jordan hasn't really cut it at third base. Urias looks like he's going to be a roving guy. Do you think we're going to see Gorman get maybe his last chance to play every day until this season's done?
He's gonna have to play first base, Brian, because I still don't know if there's a reason. Even with Blaze Jordan not cutting it, I still don't know if I can say that there's a reason that he should get to run over Blaze Jordan. There's been a lot of rhetoric coming out from the front office and some articles written by some really talented journalists about the three, I guess, the three strugglers on the 40 man who started on the 26 man, and Thomas J.C., Victor Scott II, and Nolan Gorman. And you can try to gloss over or sell Nolan Gorman and what he's done at AAA any way possible to make it sound positive. And really, the underlying numbers tell you that even in the positive, he's still the same Nolan Gorman who strikes out too much.
In fact, if you look at his strikeout numbers in Memphis, 36.2%, that's 2% higher than the 34.2% he had when he was with St. Louis. So he supposedly went down to flatten out his swing and cut out on strikeouts, and it's not working. The other oddity, it seems that Gorman, and we always knew this, but this is more of an extreme than I expected. Uh, Gorman's been swinging for the fences. He has 11 home runs, but just two doubles. That's not a well-rounded performance.
Well, Brian, they also try to sell it as a process. Like the reason that he's striking out so much is we're trying to teach him what to swing at, what not to swing at. I know, thanks to an article by Rob Rains, he mentioned that laying off the changeup is a big one, spitting on the changeup. Well, sure, all fun and games, all good. Really, it just boils down with Nolan Gorman. You're just hoping that you have him for an extended hot streak because he's always going to revert to that streakiness, and it's just a matter of how long it's going to be streaky. Maybe you get lucky and it's 4 weeks, and you spend those 4 weeks being very smart and not convincing yourself that this is the new Nolan Gorman, and rather just hope that he's building value so you can get rid of him so that some other team can deal with the roller coaster ride that is Nolan Gorman. I what I've seen Brian at AAA is a guy who still strikes out at the high fastball. He's spitting on it more, but he still strikes out. He still misses that high fastball. I would imagine major league pitchers are going to go back to just making short work of him with that. And then the other part of this is whether he's going to play second or third or how often he's going to play third or whatever. He's been terrible at third base. He was really good to start the year for the St. Louis Cardinals. It looked like he had uh, proven a lot of us wrong that wondered about his retransition back to third base. But these last 3 weeks, 4 weeks in particular at Memphis, he's been terrible at third base. The footwork has been bad. His timing with his throws have been bad. That's another area of concern here that we're going to be watching and seeing if maybe it was just malaise from being in AAA and maybe he kicks it back in and is that fielder that we saw at the beginning of the 2026 season for the St. Louis Cardinals.
There you have it, Kyle Reis's stamp of endorsement on Nolan Gorman. Uh,
Sort of.
yeah, sort of. Stamp of not endorsement, I should have said. The other news that happened, and of course, people are already familiar with this. Um, the Cardinals had been in a tremendously positive position in terms of injuries, especially in the case of their rotation. And that changed dramatically in the case of about 24 hours with Andre Pallante moving to the injured list, supposedly not a serious injury. We'll see. Hunter Dobbins then followed him, and that could be more serious, but again, we'll see. That obviously created some opportunity, but there's a lot of folks who've been sort of congratulating the Cardinals for this wonderful magic that they've discovered, which is to keep starting pitchers healthy. And you basically said in social media that you don't really believe that.
Brian, I think that they are doing everything they can to be as cautious and as catering to the starting pitchers that come through the organization, whether it be via draft or trade or free agent signing,
Well,
whatever it
no,
ends
but
up being.
yeah, but fine. But aren't the other 29 organizations doing the same thing? Of course, they want to keep their pitchers healthy. They're paying them millions of dollars a year.
That's it, Brian. It's such a weird boast. I get why they do it, right? Because you're trying to sell a product, not only to fans, but to pending free agents, about the appeal coming to the Cardinals. Look, we can keep you healthy. We have these. Well, our strength, by the way, their strength and conditioning team from top to bottom, majors to minors, deserves a ton of credit in the world. They are trying to do everything they can to be at the cutting edge of player health, player fitness, all of it. But pitching is freaking pitching, Brian. I don't know, like for as long as I'll be alive, which is probably another 5 or 6 years, and for as long as you'll be alive, which is probably another 40 or 50, I would imagine that we're going to still we're going to. I doubt that. Cheers, Brian. I would imagine that we're going to be having this conversation for years and years and years and years about, oh, this team is doing this to keep pitchers healthy. And really, the only thing that we're seeing this organization do that other organizations aren't doing is limiting pitch counts. They're being ultra conservative from top to bottom. All right, Andre Pallante, you're not going to pitch, but you got through 5 innings, you got to 90 pitches.
But they got such a strong bullpen. Why not?
I know, right? And that's the other frustrating thing. Like, I guess we always do this thing, peel the curtains back, where Brian's like, is there anything specific you want to talk about in this episode? And there's never anything specific until there's something specific. And that's what gets me into, like, here we are 2 months into Cooper Jerpy being back at the minor leagues, in the minor leagues. And they still barely push him beyond 70 pitches. The only reason he got to throw 75 pitches in his last start is because the last batter he faced like six. He got up to like 6 pitches or 7 pitches, 8 pitches on that batter. There were 2 outs in the fourth inning. They didn't even give him a chance to get to 80. Like, we're beyond that. Come on, grow up. You have to push these guys, especially Jerpy, because he's proven that the limited pitch count isn't going to do him any good. You have to push him. You have to get him extended. And so all of this is to just reel that back to say that I do believe that they're doing everything that they can, and they deserve to be commended for both the success and, more importantly, luck that they've fallen into over the last 2 years of not finding an IL stint for a starting pitcher. But think about how many other starting pitchers have missed because they've been extra careful with the starts that probably handicap their ability to win certain games along the lines, and also how conservative they've been about IL stints. With like Sonny Gray at the beginning of the year, or aggressive with IL stints, being conservative with the arms. And I think that they are doing things, and it's commendable. But also, let's not pretend like you're reinventing the wheel. Let's not pretend like you've developed the type of stem cells that are fixing pitchers before. You're not doing that. What you do is you got really lucky along the way of trying to prevent injury.
All right. Now, so let's talk about that young man you just mentioned,
Yeah,
who's not as young anymore. Cooper Jerpy's been in the system a long time. We know he's have struggled a lot with injuries. Was working his way back. Was okay at Double A. Now, at least in limited action, and as Kyle said, he hasn't been allowed to go 4 innings even yet. Cooper Jerpy's been really exceptional at Triple A. Do you think he's a guy they should call up? They need another starting pitcher. We know they need another starting pitcher, right?
Brian, I'd love to see him make that start on Thursday. It doesn't sound like it's going to happen. It sounds like there's going to have to be something that would change drastically. But I don't want him to come up if he's only going to throw 80 pitches. That's kind of where my complaint is.
The problem is everybody else throws 80 pitches too. What's the difference?
Great point, Brian.
He's throwing 60 pitches now, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're right, and that's another fun conversation. I do have. So before we get to, because I have two questions for you. One being about Nolan Gorman, and the other one being about Kyle Leahy in particular.
No, sorry, we're done with Gorman. No going back. No going back.
Yeah, look, I would prefer that Cooper Jerpy was stretched out just a little bit more before he made his major league debut. And I do, as long as they're willing to, when he makes his major league debut, get him to 85 pitches. I'm fine with that. I just would like him to get a little bit more seasoning at AAA. And you know what? If there's a guy who's earned it at AAA, it's him. I mean, he just continues to dominate and pitch well. And it's like, just push him a little. Like, I understand your curriculum. I understand strength and conditioning. I get it. But stop, just be a little aggressive. Try to get something out of these guys.
Well, okay, but help me count to five, Kyle. I got Liberatore, McGreevy, Leahy. I got Matthews, and I got a fifth starter that I don't have. This new guy Fleming, are they going to, throw him into it because he's disposable? Are they going to take Motts and make him start again? Are they going to put Pete Hansen on the 40 man? I mean, they got to get another starting pitcher, and the trade deadline's passed, and the guys on the waiver wire are not particularly appealing. What do you do?
Right. Brian, let me introduce you to the fifth starter for the time being. It's called Off Day. That's and I know they can't make it work so smoothly, but they're off. They were off yesterday.
Especially not with Leahy, and again we'll come back to Leahy in a minute. But especially given their limit, and I get why. Right, career high in innings. They want to protect him. He's part of the long-term picture. I will say it again this week. I will say it every week until he isn't good anymore. I was wrong about Kyle Leahy. I was wrong. He has been an exceptional starting pitcher. Guys can and do improve even after AAA. And Kyle Leahy has been tremendous, but he's not going to be a big part of their wins this last month and a half of the season because he won't be in the game long enough to get the win.
Yeah, Brian, I would imagine that what's going to happen, at least at first, is it'll either be Josh Fleming and the bullpen or just the bullpen at first as the fifth starter. That's my guess. It sounded like on Sports on a Sunday Morning that Pallante wasn't going to be out for all that long. Dobbins will be out for quite some time, probably the end of his season. I don't really know for a fact. I don't want that to be like that's the fact, but that's what it kind of sounds like. So at least they'll be able to pivot kind of quickly with Pallante.
Assuming that he really is okay and doesn't have a setback, and there's still, 10 days until we can see whether he can fit, right? So
that's it.
You got to get through a week and a half more of baseball, and, anyway.
Yeah, so it's really like on the surface, if you're going to keep and of course, like you said, the Kyle Leahy's pitch count thing, on the surface, you really potentially only need one turn through because of the off day next Monday, where you have to figure out something with a fifth starter potentially. If you're cute with your rotation.
Yeah, as long as this whole thing about trying to give guys rest, you have an opportunity to give them a little rest, and you can't do it, right? I mean,
exactly.
You hope, God help us if that happens. But what happens if you spring a leak somewhere else?
Yeah, Brian, and this goes back to I think what really the essence of the 5-man, who's a fifth man in the 5-man rotation, and how does a bullpen start, if it is a bullpen start, affect keeping a healthy bullpen? I mean, Brian, it really boils down to the conversation that we should have been having all year, but the Cardinals having success has voided that until recently, that this is just what this season is. This is, as we enter September, this is what this season is. And as we entered the 2026 season, we were all on board with, hey, look, it's a building year. There's going to be tough times where things just don't make sense or things are tough, but that's just the nature of the year. And we didn't have that because of success. And now, as we get to the end of the year, that's the reality of where the St. Louis Cardinals are.
And in all fairness, and it may sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but that's probably why you don't bring up Cooper Jerpy now.
Yeah.
If Cooper Jerpy starting was the difference between the St. Louis Cardinals getting that last wild card spot and not getting that last wild card spot, maybe they do it. But let's face it, they are where they are. They're going to be that way whether Jerpy's up or not. It's just unfortunate that they don't have enough good long arms in the bullpen to really, get through that. Maybe they can squeeze a few more innings out of Graceffo. We saw what happened when Ryan Fernandez was asked to pitch multiple innings. There just aren't a lot of options.
Yeah, Brian, I would suspect that we start to see the long man du jour, Justin Brule.
Strzelecki did a great job until they tried to get 4 innings out of the guy. I mean, come on. I mean, it's sort of like you're winning at the baccarat table or whatever, and instead of putting some of those winnings aside, you just keep pushing it all in the middle. Push more all in the middle. It's like, hey,
one pitch away too. Yeah, so that's what I think. And again, I don't know anything. I tried to inquire a little bit today and got shot down about a lot of things. And I would bet without getting into like it's going to be Strzelecki's going to get the start on Thursday. Justin he'll pitch 3 innings. Brew will pitch 2 or 3 innings, and then Graceffo will pitch 2 or 3 innings, and just whatever happens
And
happens.
they'll lose 7-3, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Unfortunately.
whatever it ends up being, and that's I would suspect that that's kind of what we continue to see. Although one thing that I would like to say, and again, I don't know if I'm going to be right here or not. And Brian, you're right. Maybe if you're going down fighting for the wild card spot, then that's where you call up Cooper Jerpy. But I do think that when rosters expand in September, maybe not right away, but you have to get if he's healthy, you have to get Cooper Jerpy a start or two, a start or two in the major leagues. Whether it's the last game of the year or the second 2 turns through, you have to get him a start. You just have to do it. You have to do it for yourself. You have to do it for him.
All right. And speaking of guys getting a chance, I'm jumping obviously from St. Louis all the way down to Palm Beach. I'm giving Kyle credit for when credit's due, and that is that Kyle accurately predicted that first rounder Trevor Condon would in fact get some at bats with Palm Beach. He was called up. I think he's had 9 at bats so far, has 4 hits, double. Has looked very, very good.
He's been good. He's been very good. There's also a lot of minor league defense that has aided in his ability to get hits. But look, there's not taking away from the excitement and the production that we've seen in a very short sample from Trevor Condon. I cannot wait to continue to see how his season progresses. Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead of it. He got in his debut, he got to show off his arm a little bit. I don't know. Look, it's just exciting. I keep going, Brian. I keep defaulting back to like all those international kids at Palm Beach with Trevor Condon, and it's like every night the lineup can be completely different, and it's just a stacked, fun lineup of intriguing prospects, which Palm Beach really has never had.
And another thing to keep an eye on the pitching side, they've been toggling in a lot of guys from the Florida Complex League, some good young pitchers, primarily from the international program, the Kanya, Zuluetas, Vargas, those kind of guys. And they've had, some have been successful, some haven't, but they're getting a chance for some other arms to get a taste. And then when they need somebody fresh, they move them right back. Now we know the Florida Complex League is done, but there are players down there as they're still active in camp, so they can afford to do that. The downside of those set of moves, and it wasn't the downside at the time, and that was that Yaro Padilla got the promotion to Palm Beach, from Palm Beach to Peoria, excuse me, and almost immediately got hurt. And he's on the injured list. I haven't heard yet what happened. I don't know if you have, but it's disappointing that Padilla, didn't get a chance yet. And, hopefully it'll be a short-term thing and he can play again, but Peoria only has a couple weeks left in the season. So, time is running out.
Yeah, Padilla's got a little bit early in his career of that Travis Honeyman, right? Where it's like one injury after the other, comes off the IL, might have a month where he can only take swings, and then back on the IL he goes, which is a bummer because he's a rising prospect that's tons of exciting who can play the middle infield. So that's a bummer. That one's a bummer.
And I talked about it this spring. I saw him get injured in one game in spring training, and it was just an aggressive headfirst slide into third base. And a lot of times when that happens, something bad can happen with the hands or the wrists, and that's what happened to him. So
Yeah, and of course, just another instance of an injury sliding head first, which you don't blame people for because you see awesome swim moves and you can avoid the tag, but it is obviously more dangerous than sliding feet first. So
not how I was taught back in the prehistoric days, but hey, it's a different world now. We also
yeah.
didn't have oven mitts that have Fredbird's face on them, and that can,
or the Wanbin Show smiley face, the yellow
yeah.
smiley face that he wears, which is really fun when he bats because you can see the smiley face in his pocket, which I obviously is a quirk that I enjoy.
So another injury, disappointing, and I didn't get any details on this, but Ishan Henderson had been fighting his way back from his spring training injury, and the weeks went on to months, and he finally, got to do some rehab, came back to Memphis, immediately threw 4 innings, no hit innings, walked a few, but did a great job, and then boom, he's back on the IL. His season's over.
Brian, I had asked last week before we went live about his health, and I was told that he wasn't on an injury report.
Yeah, well, he
And
is now.
that's a lesson in semantics, is what
Uh-huh.
that is. That's a
Yes.
lesson in how to handle things in the moment. So
He doesn't have to be on
yeah,
the injury report because he's done for the year. He's back in camp and rehab, back in a rehab program.
because they have not done the testing yet to put him on the injury report.
Yeah,
That was really
yeah,
what that boiled down to.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I guess one positive is you look and you see that Memphis rotation, and you look and see the Springfield rotation, and there's not an Eshawn Henderson size hole there that you can't fill. You
No,
know, so,
no, he's
so that
just a top 20 prospect you want to see pitch. And, ideally, I would have thought Eshawn Henderson would have been a perfect guy to send to the Arizona Fall League, right?
yeah.
Needs to build up some innings, get some momentum going into next year. And now, when they move to the 60-day, that's the signal to me that his season's done.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Um, Brian, I know that you probably have a direction that you would like for this to go, but you had a little bit of news that came a little early about the Arizona Fall League and which team the Cardinals were going to be playing for. I wasn't sure if that was on your agenda, but you should touch on that a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I guess since I made mentioned AFL, that would be a good time to do that. Folks know the Arizona Fall League is basically a 6-7 week program that occurs every year. There are 6 teams that are each made up of players from 5 MLB organizations. So 5 MLB organizations come together, make a team. They play in a 6-team league, so there's 3 games a day in the Phoenix area. And this year, the Cardinals will be part of the Peoria Javelinas. They play at the Peoria Sports Complex, which is kind of up in the northwest part of the Phoenix metropolitan area, not too far from Surprise. So we don't know yet who the Cardinals will be assigned to that team. They'll be playing with the Reds, and there'll be several other organizations on that squad. Typically, the Cardinals send a coach as well, but so we'll see about that. And they usually send 7 or 8 players, maybe 4 or 5 pitchers, and then the rest position players. They'll typically send one name player, I'll say, that's their priority position player, and that means that player gets to play semi-regularly, as much as 4 out of the 6 days every week. Every organization gets to tab one guy. Also, you can do the math. With 5 MLB teams coming together, that means each of them get a starter, so you have a 5-man rotation. So the Cardinals will send a starting pitcher, and then they'll send other guys to get work. They could send other starters too, but they'll only throw 1 inning at a time, for example. So the Arizona Fall League starts the 3rd of October and basically runs right up prior to Thanksgiving. I don't know exactly when the players are going to be announced. It won't be sometime until September because they want to make sure, they want to see who's healthy and who's not healthy. And over the years, it's been maybe a little less. I mean, what I remember is going to the Fall Stars game, which is they call their All-Star game, and Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg were playing, and the stadium was sold out. There's like 8,000, 10,000 people there because these guys are top guys. They won't be those level of guys, but still, it's an opportunity for for players to get more time, for organizations to see them, especially guys that are on the cusp of a 40-man roster spot. And they should have seen enough to know, is a Hansel Rincon worth a 40-man roster spot or not? But they could send him down there and say, okay, go down, throw another 10 or 15 innings, and we'll make a decision on you in November.
Yeah, Brian, I think that's a really good point. Over the last couple of years, especially last year, right? They released that list of Cardinal prospects headed to the Arizona Fall League, and it was very underwhelming. And of course, that was driven by our current administration, the Cardinals' current administration. It wasn't driven by the prior administration. So it'll be fascinating to see what direction the Cardinals decide to go. In the past, we've seen, when they send a pitcher will be working on a specific pitch. Last year, Darlin Saladin was working on a changeup. Prior to that, Matt Svanson was working on a cutter. A lot of times, that's the MO. Travis Honeyman was just about getting at bats. Other pitchers getting getting innings. I think that the real interesting question is, as Tekoa Roby works his way back, will he find, even though he's older, will he find his way to the Arizona Fall League to get an inning or two if he's healthy? But yeah, and then the last, to your point, Brian, it seems like the announcement of the prospects are coming a little bit later and later and later as teams decide, as minor league seasons end, AAA season in particular ends later than it ever really has. Teams try to decide exactly what prospects they're going to send, but some of the luster on the prospects has definitely been dulled. Although it could be interesting to see if some of the prospect shine is back as we enter a potential work stoppage. If the owners and front offices might use that as an opportunity to highlight some of their premier young talent that you might be able to watch play for your favorite minor league team if your major league team isn't playing.
And to that vein, again, want to reiterate, we've talked about it before, but if and when there's a lockout, that affects all players on the 40-man roster, whether they're in the majors or not. So a Bryson Motts, for example, a Leonardo Bernal, they'll be on strike or they'll be locked out as well. So that means that the minor leagues will continue as expected, but it's going to create more opportunity. But it's also going to mean some guys that you'd like to keep playing won't get the chance to play until those very substantial issues between players and owners are resolved.
Yeah. So, hey, but that's right there. And you know who will be there, Brian? You'll be there.
I'll be there. I like to go somewhere in the second half of the fall league campaign. Ideally, the Fall Stars game. This year they moved the Fall Stars game late. It's like the last week, I think, of the fall league, and that's unusual. I get why they've done it. So I got to look at my travel plans again. But right now my thinking is I'm going to go later so that I can catch the Fall Stars game. But I'll report on what I find there as always.
Yeah.
In other labor news, Francis Romero, who's a journalist who has very, very good ties to what's going on in Latin America, came out and said, hey, everything I'm hearing is that the international signing class of 2027 will not happen.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of pre-agreements in place with players for some big money. I don't know how many the Cardinals have. Depends on, the rumor mill. But if there are no international signings in 2027, that not only hurts international program, but it also allows every major league organization to save somewhere between $6 and $8 million right off the top in signing bonuses.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really that's the name of the game, right? If you're talking about a work stoppage, where can you cut costs?
Revenue
And
slows down. You got to cut expense, right?
that's really it. I'm going to be fascinated. You know what? People keep talking about an international draft. It benefits both players and the owners, right? Because then they can control salaries. It makes more sense. You put an age cap. Is not as much of a risk, really, a risk involved. You're not coming to a pre-agreement with a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old. You're drafting them at 16 or older.
Yeah, an age floor. An age floor would be very, very important.
Exactly. And my guess would be that they probably would do 15 or 16, I would hope.
MLB's position is they want 18.
Yeah, yeah.
And that,
And
that's an area of potential compromise. But it's an interesting situation if you think about it in the context of America,
that's
and ourselves. When I was 16 years old, would I have been able to go off to Florida or the Dominican Republic and play baseball and focus on trying to get my GED and get through high school and, learn all, I mean, it's a lot for anybody to handle. And,
yeah.
I see the benefit of waiting until 18, but that would also then question, do you have a 2028 draft, right? Or, I mean, a 2028 international signing period, or do you wait until everybody gets old enough and catches up? It'll be very
Yeah.
interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. And that's the other fun thing too. And again, this you watch the dominoes falling and it's all speculation, but it would also be a good enough reason then with the hole in talent coming in if you were to hold off the 2027 class and 2028 class, wait till they get 18. The reason to contract another minor league level if they decided to do that, which again, speculation, it's not fair to say, but you can understand how these dominoes might fall as we continue to talk about why owners might want to cost cut at a time when, at a time when money's important.
As long as they're speculating. I mean, the Dominican Summer League has over 50 teams, and we all know Major League Baseball has 30 organizations. So the vast majority of MLB organizations have two DSL teams. Cardinals used to, they did for 3 or 4 years, and they cut back, again, to save money under the old regime. But the reality is, and the dogs like that comment. So,
Brian, do you mind? I go on with what you're saying, and then I'm sorry. What's happening right now is not a real thing.
So anyway, I think that most likely that a lot of the teams in the that have a second team in the Dominican Summer League are probably going to pull back next year because
Yes.
the best players in the Dominican Summer League play there 1 year. They come to the U.S. The other ones hang on for 2 years. If you're there a third year, chances are you don't have a future in baseball. Unfortunately, is the way it works.
You're right, Brian. You're right. And the truth is that was always a cheat for me. You would look and you would see the players that spent a second year in the Dominican Summer League, and you could almost always write them off. It didn't matter how good they're oh my God, this guy, this 17-year-old hitting 400 with a 700 on base percentage, and he has a bunch of doubles and a single. This is his second year. You mean last year he had 209 and didn't have an extra base hit? You could always roll it out. Now for the audience, Brian, and for you, we have just a random plastic bag. I don't know where it came from, and a Dipper decided that he wanted to chew on it. In the process of chewing on it and running, he got caught inside of it. It caught him, Brian. And so Aggie was barking like, "Hey, dude, you're caught in a plastic bag. What the hell?"
Kids,
So,
kid, kids,
anyways,
kids, don't play with plastic bags at home. You can get hurt. Please, there's suffocation risk. Don't play with plastic bags. Kyle's not condoning this.
not at all. Please don't. I'm over here half freaking out, half laughing because Dipper gets in the bag and is just falling, just like rolling in the bag, and you can still see his head, his big head, his big goofy head, and yeah. So, but again, to the labor negotiation side, the international class side, all of the talk that's coming of what's going to happen with the bonuses for 2027 class and what might happen with 2028 and what the age limit might be. Sorry, I got to grab. What the age limit might be. Hi, Dippy. What the age limit might be eventually for an international draft, if there is one, is really fascinating. It's going to be a real hot conversation point as we as fans talk about labor negotiations because the other thing about the draft about international players is there is not a reason for the current Players Association in Major League Baseball to even care about it, and it's something that they can put on the back burner. It's just like with minor leaguers and paying minor leaguers a proper wage. They don't have to care about that, even though they went through it. They don't have to care about it. It's not something that you want to take a stand on in a negotiation because it just comes back to bite you. It's something that another side can negotiate against you on.
Right. Well put. So let's talk a little bit about the Springfield Cardinals. Springfield Cardinals have a loaded roster. They didn't win the first half, but that was with a bunch of different players that, and now they've got the cream of the Peoria crop and have a really, really strong looking team. I want you to talk a little bit about Randall Clemente because he's a guy that you like and you've mentioned it before. This guy has the top strikeout rate in the entire Cardinals minor league system. There's not a pitcher in the Cardinals minor league system who can strike out 14.76 batters per 9 innings. However, Randall Clemente also has the highest walk rate of all pitchers in the entire Cardinals system. How are they going to fix that? The guy comes in, he faces 10 batters in a game, he strikes out 7 and walks 3.
He's a psycho. It's the funniest thing too, Brian, because right away, all right, is this a 7-0 game? If Randall Clemente's in it, what's going to end up happening is he's going to walk 3 batters and then strike out everybody else. Now, if it is a high leverage, all right, Randall, we need you to get through the 9th and the 10th. He's going to strike out 6 batters and he's not going to walk anybody. He's a psycho. And I don't understand how it's happening or what it is. But the way that he dominates too, it's not just like quantity. It's not that he's getting all these at bats and that's allowing him to have a huge K per 9. He beats down good hitters with his pitch mix, his high velocity fastball and I think 2 breaking pitches, including a changeup. And it's just, he does it in such a unique and powerful way that like that you just can't really ever dismiss him. The breaking pitches are just so good and it's unhittable by lefties and righties. And I don't know, when you watch him, again, if it's a game or it's a blowout one way or the other, just go do something else for 10 minutes, come back for when the bases is loaded, and he's going to put everybody down. He just needs that like tension. If he can just work through that, find a way to get aggressive, then I think that this is a major league arm. I don't know if you can say that it's not a major league arm. It's just so impressive and fun to watch.
I mean, and again, the details are different because they're different pitchers with different pitches, but it's kind of like our conversations about Luis Gastelum last year, right?
Yeah. And also like, it's kind of like Malcolm Nunez too, but like with an actionable fastball and a breaking pitch that plays off the fastball.
Edwin, not Malcolm.
Well, it's kind of like him too for a reason that I'll vamp and try to figure out.
Former Cardinal Edwin Nunez.
Yeah. Former him and for the Jose Quintana deal, him and Johan Oviedo for Jose Quintana all those years back. That's how Malcolm Nunez found his way to Pittsburgh. But yes, yeah. So that's it. I really like Randall Clement. I think when you Clement or Clemente, I believe it's Clement. I probably need to do a better job of listening, but his stuff is electric. And just like you said, if he can find the consistency in the corners of the zone, like Luis Gastelum did, then that's it's a major league arm. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know. And I know that they're working with him to get there. I don't know what it's going to take, but if he can just get there, then that's a high leverage potential arm at the major league level. And there's not a lot of that.
Now, the other guy I want to talk about is, and time will tell. I mean, certainly, uh, Daniel Egan is a very fine pitcher. You know, he's a guy that'll go 6 innings every time, allow 2 or 3 runs, keep you in the game. Certainly, a guy that we ranked in the prospect list. But the guy who might end up being the gem of the Newpar trade, Sandro Santana, the lefty. I guess he finally allowed his first run since joining the organization. But Santana is looking mighty fine.
Brian, the most surprising moment of my last 2 weeks was when Sandro Santana let up a home run to a lefty. And that's not even like, I'm talking about my life. I'm not just talking about baseball. I could not believe it. He threw a 96 or 97 mile an hour fastball somewhat in, but left it over the plate to a lefty, and the guy crushed it. You know what else happened that inning is he struck out the side. So he's a small little bundle. He's like this big, Brian. For the podcast listeners, I'm about 4 inches, but my hands are separated by about 4 inches here.
150 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, yeah, and he just throws gas and he commands his zone really well. And
Mariano Rivera wasn't a big guy either. Now, I'm not saying that Sandro Santana is going to be Mariano Rivera, but
yeah, Brian, to your point, like one of the tweets that I sent out is I think about any other team in Double A, and I probably need to spend a little time really watching and paying attention to other teams' prospects, especially in the bullpen. But if you're talking about just straight stuff, straight ability to get guys out with the strikeout, I would almost wager that there aren't a whole lot of lefty righty combos in all of the minor leagues out of the bullpen that match the stuff that Randall Clement and Sandro Santana have. And that is such a weapon, especially as Springfield will eventually find their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, and obviously the rotation there is pretty good. So, they'll get you maybe your 5 or 6 innings in the playoffs, and then you turn over these guys to close out the win. It's pretty impressive. And I can tell you, I've been covering the Cardinals minor league system for a long time, and 99.9% of the time in the past, when I'm talking about Springfield relievers, I'm talking about how bad they are. I mean, six ERAs is the common thing for the Springfield bullpen. So to have guys who, like I said, like we talked about Luis Gastelum last year, that have, significant major league potential, it's nice to see.
Absolutely, Brian. Absolutely. And Nolan Sparks, another long reliever for Springfield, continues to show out a little bit, show that he was ready for the Springfield assignment, let his better stuff eat in a more refined bullpen setting. So again, Brian, I don't remember ever a time in the organization over the last 10 years or 15 years or ever really where there were that many intriguing options that had major league caliber or flashing caliber stuff out of a bullpen for Springfield. How exciting,
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to come back to one thing because it was against something that you posted on social media, and I love to call you on that.
I love that.
Cooper Jerpy. If Cooper Jerpy threw 93 instead of 91, he would be in the major leagues today. Do you think it's that simple? You talked before about him needing to throw more innings as well.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Brian. I really believe that if he was throwing 93, I think that he would make his major league debut on Thursday. I really do. And the funny thing is his 91 miles an hour, as anyone will tell you, based on his release characteristics and the movement profile, even with the Major League Baseball, and that's really what separates him, is he's throwing magic stuff with the Major League Baseball. Is the 91 plays up to 94, 95. So, of course, if it was 93 consistently, and he can hit 93, he's hit 93.4 or whatever. But if he could get up to 95, that would look, or 93, that would look like 95 or 96 to the hitters. And then that's a whole different story. We know that for a fact from that weird, crazy sidearm-ish release, crossfire release angle.
Okay.
But I do think that that's the difference. I think, pitch count aside, I think that he's starting on Thursday if he's throwing consistently 93 for the 4 innings that he would throw.
Yeah, he may start, but it'll probably be with Memphis.
Yeah.
So I want to come back to Springfield for a minute. I lied. I'm not done with Springfield. Liam Doyle, 8 starts, 2 runs or less. we know that his fastball is exceptional. His fastball is still exceptional, but he wasn't throwing it as much earlier on because he was working on his other pitches. Did they say screw it and go back to what made you successful, or did he check off those boxes that they wanted him to check off?
Brian, I want to give our good friend Jeff Ponce a hat tip from Baseball America. I was listening to their podcast today, and it was something that I've heard him talk about. Is one of the things that the Cardinals have adjusted with Liam Doyle that I did not notice, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't notice, is he's moved on the rubber, moved closer to I believe, the first base side of the rubber. And that is, he's also kind of cleaned up his mechanics in the process. And in the process of that, what we've noticed over these last 8 starts is that his splitter is really biting, and it's moving and it's diving low and outside to righties. And that's been huge. It's become a setup pitch. Now, there are some interesting characteristics. He's kind of throwing a curve, kind of throwing a slider, kind of throwing a cutter, kind of throwing a sweeper. It's all kind of this muddled mess that we're still trying to figure out. But all of these pitches that he's kind of toying with that have become like the third option behind the splitter and the fastball, which were his 2 best pitches as he entered the organization, are all becoming intriguing kind of meld mold pitches of each other. So that's part of what's leading into all this. It's going fastball splitter, his 2 best pitches, going heavy with those, and refining the command of the splitter and letting it all play together. And that's why Liam Doyle has been what he's been over the last 8 starts, and why now we're starting to see a lot of these publications start to course correct after knocking them down. Third party outlets.
Yes, I was gonna correct you. Randy Flores is in my ear saying those
That's
third
it.
parties.
Yeah, I feel like most of the time I'm going to say third party outlets is a hat tip to Randy Flores, and I'm going to talk about superpowers as a hat tip to Rob Serfolio, both of which both terms I hate. But you know what? To them, God bless. So that's really what's.
Hey, but they're AGMs and we're not, so let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, can you imagine if they were ever to listen to me? They'd be like, I hate that he says this. I hate that he says this. I hate that he says this. I hate that he looks this way. So it would. I mean, look, if I've got one thing, I only have one thing for each of them, and it's a dumb word.
But they will never hate your dogs because nobody hates dogs.
It's true. It's true. Even when they get caught in a plastic bag, Brian.
All right. So there was one other thing I wanted to cover, but I can't remember. Oh, I know. There's a couple guys at AA that have been hitting pretty well lately. Have you noticed?
I haven't, Brian. Who are they?
Yeah.
No, it's Reis Rodriguez and Jesus Baez, who are the Bash brothers. You know them as Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. Baez continues to hit the home runs. His double count's very low though. Is that concerning to you? I mean, strikeout rate's low, walk rate's low, and strikeout rate's great to be low as somebody for a power hitter. But he's not really getting many doubles.
Brian, I do think that part of what Jesus Baez is doing is illusory. I definitely think there's a little bit of a smokescreen going on, but I can't quantify it, and I can't really do the eye test to tell you exactly what it is because I have not picked up on it. What I know is he's hitting for a lot of power, and it's really cool, and he's young, and he's made strides that I didn't think he would be able to make at least this soon. So I'm gonna strap on for the ride and hope for the best. But one thing you and I have not talked about that has become kind of a point of conversation, not only in the scouting industry or the third party industry or on Twitter, is and offense in the minor leagues has really, really, especially home run, has really spiked. We talked about it back when Rainiel and Jesus Baez and Juan Bencho were a part of the Peoria team. We kind of highlighted the Midwest League all of a sudden having this huge power surge. Well, this is going on minor league wide. And it's a fascinating thing to keep an eye on.
And the speculation is it's a baseball.
Because I'm sure the next conversation is going to be very smart people who have cut that baseball in half and compared it to past years. And they'll find that the baseball is designed to fly a little bit more. Again, speculation and conspiracy theory aside, is really cool and exciting when you're talking about hitting prospects.
But now, Reiniel Rodriguez has 21 home runs, not 34 like Jesus Baez, but Reiniel Rodriguez is a lot more than that. The guy is the Texas League Player of the Week for the second time. He's only been at the level, less than 3 months. But I think what was most interesting was in an interview, Rob Serfolio dropped the bombshell that they might try him at third base in the offseason. What did you think of
Brian,
that?
so I would say that I had a little different read on that. Uh, I think that you actually have to really listen to the interview because they talked about position versatility, how important it was, how important it is that he's ready for whatever he ends up being called for when he gets to the major league level. And just as one of the things he said, third base, out first base,
But he already
outfield.
plays first base, so that's no news.
But that's my point. Is I don't necessarily think that like this is, and we'll find out. We'll see. And of course, we know that the Cardinals have a. I mean, Nolan Gorman's going to take it over, and he's going to be the best hitter in baseball. Brian, for the he's Babe Ruth now. So, but I just don't think that it's going to be one of those things that is actually fully real. I do think he'll get grounders at third, but I don't think like giving him practical at bats at third or practical reps at third is going to be something that's going to be a high priority for them. Uh, Again, it's a priority for the organization to find a long-term third baseman. If you look around the diamond, that's really all that they don't have if you want to be cute.
And it's also a
But
priority for the organization to figure out what to do with all the damn catchers.
but the catchers have sorted themselves out, right, Brian? We're seeing the catchers start to sort themselves out. They still have minus Yoel Pozo. They still have the same catchers, and they still have the same those questions that they've had are starting to get answered, and they did it without really thinning out the herd, other than Yoel Pozo. And you can continue to thin out the herd. I won't say the gentleman's name because every week I go on a rant, and the minute I say his name, I'm going to go on a rant.
He's gonna become a pitcher, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, quality of pitch, Brian. That's going to be the next thing we need to worry about with this gentleman. But you don't need even next year, even this offseason, you don't have to worry about that Pedro Pajes. You can get rid of him. You can do whatever you want with him. He's not important at all, other than to like hugging people after home runs, which is something that I really respect. I couldn't tell like I want to be that guy. How do I get that job? You can pay me half of what you're paying Pedro Pajes, and I will gladly hug Major League Baseball players in the dugout in a very sensual way. I'm uniquely accompanied. I'm made for that, Brian.
And
But
welcome to Wednesday with Walton and Reis and Prospects After Dark. As you can see, we just crossed the line. Kyle will be removing his shirt shortly, and we will end our session.
no, but that's just to say that like I still don't think that there's an urgency necessarily to sort out the catcher situation because the the crowdedness is still Pedro Paez, and he doesn't matter at all. He just does not matter for your long term stability. I think that a year from now, you still can go out there with Crooks and figure out what he is, Bernal and figure out what he is, and Rainiel and figure out what he is, and still decide what this is going to be while getting Bernal reps at first at AAA in the majors, getting Rainiel reps at first at AAA. I don't think that the urgency is there just yet. And if the urgency is there, then they needed to make that decision in the offseason, or they needed to make that decision months ago, not in the offseason. They needed to make that decision months ago. Because what did we learn from Jordan Walker playing the outfield? Is you can't just thrust guys into these situations if they're gonna make a major league debut in the near future. You have to be willing to plan that out and give it time to percolate, Brian.
All right, there you have it. Kyle, any last subjects to cover this week?
Brian, I guess one thing going back to Nolan Gorman
Yeah,
is how surprised were you by that, and how do you expect it to go?
I was surprised a little bit, but then again, I look at the Memphis roster and I look at what their alternatives are, right? I mean, you can bring JC back up. You can bring up basically the same tired alternatives that they've had all along. And we've seen Prieto, right? I
Yeah.
suppose they could bring up Victor Scott, but Victor Scott, while he's been temporarily hot, you're not going to play him. So they don't have a lot. I guess they could put Ramon Mendoza on the 40 man and give him a shot just to say thank you. But the point is there aren't a lot of good options right now.
Yeah, Brian, that's all that I could think of is like, look, if you're gonna, I think that this is the right move to make, even though I don't really care about Nolan Gorman anymore, and I don't think it's going to do anybody any good. Uh, you know, uh, Especially because now I'm kind of worried that they're going to over invest into like success if he has success. Um, I guess the sentimentalist in me would have really liked to have seen Ramon Mendoza or Noah Mendlinger just get the cap tip. I
They
really would have
still
liked
might.
that.
There's still a month plus left in the season. It's not out of the
Yeah,
question.
yeah. Although I hadn't thought about Victor Scott, and Victor Scott, I'm glad we're having a second to talk about it. Victor Scott has been great at Memphis. specifically defensively, but also offensively for like the last 3 weeks, maybe even the last month. I don't have the stats in front of me. And I just want to give him a cap tip because, granted, I don't think that anything has really changed. I know that they've talked about his like mind frame and his mental state and getting at the plate, getting in a better position mentally to hit and what to do with what he has. But really, if it wasn't for Nathan Church, who's hitting what you might call well in August because he's just swinging really at everything. Um, Maybe it would have been him, but again, it's nice to get a second to as these guys who have failed at the major league level make their way down to the minors. It's nice to give them a little cap tip for success that they're having.
Well, and right now your fourth outfielder, I guess, is Jose Fermin, and then Torres is your fifth, I guess, or I
Yeah,
don't know that Urias would be out there. And we saw, and God bless him, Jose Fermin is a great player. He's a great guy to have on your bench, but it might have cost him a game when he was in center field that there was a ball he just couldn't get to, and nothing against him, but it's a ball Nathan Church would have caught. It's a ball Victor Scott would have caught.
yeah.
So it's it if the Cardinals again were focused on only winning this year, maybe they'd bring Victor up. But right now, I guess they want to. I guess they want to give Gorman one last chance to decide if they can, resurrect his value or whether they're just going to have to cut bait.
And that's it, Brian. And here's the hoping that Nolan Gorman can put it together. Who he can start to do the mental side of what they've wanted to see and what he continued to show at AAA at the major league level, and it'll all click the way it did for Jordan Walker.
And you can find out what we have to say next week when we come back in the month of September here at Wednesday with Walton and Reis. But this will close our August 26th edition. And we thank everyone for watching and listening as always. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Brian.